I look like I've been slapped pretty silly, but that's what it is when you get a webcam. That's the kind of look you have. It's a webcam. Here's actually what I wanted to tell you about today. It's about a St. Louis famous icon. That is the Museum of Transport, the National Museum of Transport, just outside Kirkwood, Missouri. It is home to several streetcars, trains, and of course the famous Frisco 1522, which of course that locomotive has made several movies itself. The museum was also home to several old buses that once ran on the streets of St. Louis. A 7,000 class roller flexible and a GM Old Look, which was number 4878. Of course, that bus was a prototype that was to go along with the new PCC streetcars. It was to be used as a feeder for feeder service, feeding passengers to the streetcars. But it cost the museum a lot of money to run all that. Here are some routes I'm thinking you could run those old buses on, and just like in New York and out in San Francisco, we too could have a few days of running vintage buses over some of the routes that they once ran on, though. And of course, my idea of a South County connector, we could run buses like the Roar Flexible on it, though, and that way people would get to see what it was like when buses like that were the rule of transportation here in St. Louis. A lot of those were seen almost all over the places. So, and of course, when I was in my 20s, early 20s, I remember seeing those on routes that would go into South St. Louis County. They'd run in Crestwood. They would be assigned to run on the old Clayton Oakville. They would, and also what used to be the Kirkwood Clayton line, which ran on the streets of Kirkwood and through Glendale on into Webster by way of Kirkham, and they would head on into Clayton by way of Brentwood. And of course, that was when you were on Kirkham, Kirkham didn't change to Brentwood until after you crossed into the city of Brentwood. So maybe they're thinking maybe like having the South County Connector be more like operate as a tourist line. They could run that Roar Flexible on it. And maybe the old Big Bend, which it used to come from your city, it would pick up Big Bend at Delmar and it followed Big Bend all the way into Kirkwood, right at Kirkwood Road in Big Bend. And what it did, it then went up Kirkwood Road to Adams. It turned left on Adams and followed Adams clear all the way on to Ballas and Ballas on what is now Mercy. That was how the old Big Bend used to run. Imagine if that thing came back with me, and all of a sudden bus number 4878 ran on it. But I tell you, I wouldn't need Colorado. Just go down to Kirkland Adams, hop on old 4878, and about 15 minutes I'd be at work. But just think though, your donation to the Museum of Transport would help, and we can do some cool things. Here's the buses. This is bus number 7063. It was built by Flexible, and it was it was a Rohr Flexible. These came in 3 different sizes. The 30-footers were the 7200 class buses. The 35-footers were the 7000s and 7100s. And then the big 40-footers, those are 7300s and the 7300 class and through the 7500 class. And it goes to show that was a lot of Rohr Flexibles Bi-State bought. Here is bus number 4878. It was the GM Old Look bus. A lot of these were built where you had what's called a dual jackknife door up front across from the bus driver and one in the back. You had 2 sets of dual jackknife doors when they were built. The early ones, the first ones had what's called the GM Straight 6, which later on came out to be the famed Detroit diesels. St. Louis Public Service bought a large fleet of these, and when Bi-State took over, they were painted as a 2-tone blue. And those lasted, those things were built to last. The last of these retired, I think, towards the 1980s. That's how long they lasted.